Imagine waking up one morning, and the air itself is killing you. You open your eyes to a world shrouded in a strange haze, dense, metallic, heavy. The sun still rises, but its light seems weaker, tinted orange through a veil of poisonous mist. You take a breath, and it burns. Your lungs seize. Panic spreads. In a matter of hours, the very thing that once sustained all life, oxygen, has turned into a silent weapon. This is what would happen if Earth's atmosphere turned toxic overnight. It begins quietly. No explosion, no warning. Just a shift so small, it's invisible to the human eye, but devastating in effect. At first, scientists would be the only ones to notice. Satellite readings start showing chemical anomalies, massive spikes of sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, hydrogen sulfide. The atmosphere's composition, once 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen, begins to mutate. Something, an unknown chain reaction, has altered its chemistry. The next morning, the change reaches the surface. Birds fall from the sky mid-flight. Trees, stripped of their oxygen exchange, begin to suffocate. Within hours, the oceans start releasing methane bubbles as marine life dies off en masse. And humans? We wouldn't last long. Even the smallest increase in certain gases, like hydrogen sulfide or sulfur dioxide, would burn our lungs, corrode our eyes, and poison our blood. People indoors might last a little longer, using limited oxygen tanks or filtered air systems. But filtration can only delay the inevitable. The toxic gases would find their way in, seeping through every crack, every vent. Civilization, as we know it, would collapse within days. Let's break down what just happened. Earth's atmosphere is a delicate balance, a perfect chemical harmony that has taken billions of years to form. The air we breathe isn't just oxygen. It's a blend of nitrogen, argon, carbon dioxide, and trace gases that together make life possible. But what if that balance shifted? What if, overnight, the atmosphere transformed into a toxic mix, perhaps due to a massive volcanic chain reaction? A rogue asteroid impact vaporizing heavy elements, or even a runaway industrial reaction spiraling out of control. Any of these could inject massive quantities of poisons into the air. Imagine all the world's volcanoes erupting simultaneously, releasing trillions of tons of sulfur dioxide and carbon monoxide. These gases, once mixed with moisture, would form acid clouds that blanket the planet. Rain would no longer bring life. It would bring corrosion. Oceans would turn acidic. Fish, plankton, and coral reefs, the foundation of the marine food chain, would vanish. Without them, oxygen production would plummet even further. Within weeks, Earth would become eerily quiet. Forests would die from the inside out, their leaves burned by chemical rain, their roots choking in poisoned soil. The once blue sky would turn brownish-red, heavy with dense particles reflecting sunlight in strange, distorted ways. Global temperatures would start to drop, not because of a natural ice age, but because sunlight could no longer pierce the toxic haze. In this nightmare world, only the deepest bunkers or sealed habitats could offer refuge. Governments and scientists might scramble to create safe zones, massive underground cities powered by filtered air and artificial ecosystems. But survival would be limited. Food supplies would dwindle. Agriculture would be impossible without clean air, and animals would perish before breeding cycles could continue. Humanity would turn to technology as its last hope. Oxygen recyclers, mechanical lungs, artificial biospheres, each one a desperate attempt to mimic what the atmosphere once gave us for free. Perhaps a few thousand might survive underground, watching through sealed cameras as Earth's surface becomes a wasteland. Skies once alive with clouds would now swirl with yellow gas and acid vapor. Rain would hiss as it struck the ground. Over time, the planet itself would start to change color. Without vegetation, deserts would spread. Rivers would dry, leaving behind mineral scars. The oceans, stained with decay, might take on a greenish-black hue. To any distant observer, Earth would appear sick, no longer the vibrant blue marble of life, but a dying world wrapped in its own poison. But let's go deeper, into the science of it. If Earth's atmosphere turned toxic overnight, the key factor would be chemistry. A massive oxidation event, for example, could convert oxygen into unstable compounds. One possibility. A sudden increase in volcanic or industrial activity, releasing enough hydrogen sulfide to overwhelm the oxygen cycle. Hydrogen sulfide reacts with oxygen to form sulfur dioxide and water, both highly corrosive. As this reaction spreads, oxygen levels would drop rapidly, replaced by suffocating gases. The very air would become flammable. One spark could ignite regions of the atmosphere, setting off firestorms unlike anything seen before. Another possibility could be cosmic, an interstellar cloud of gas sweeping through the solar system, interacting with Earth's upper atmosphere and triggering chain reactions. Or perhaps a microscopic alien spore, biological or chemical in nature, altering the way our atmosphere processes oxygen and carbon dioxide. Whatever the cause, the result remains the same: extinction. Now imagine the human reaction. At first, disbelief. Governments would urge calm, issuing statements about temporary anomalies. But soon, panic would set in. Cities would empty. Highways would clog with cars going nowhere. The air outside would become unbreathable, forcing people to seal themselves inside homes with makeshift barriers. Hospitals would overflow, not with the injured, but with the suffocating. Children gasping for air. Families clutching oxygen masks that no longer work. Within a week, the global population would fall drastically. Power grids would fail as workers abandoned their posts. Communication networks would go silent. The world would shrink into isolated pockets of survivors, each one struggling to outlast the atmosphere itself. And yet, in the darkest corners of this disaster, humanity might find a spark of resilience. Somewhere deep underground, a team of scientists might continue working, trying to restore balance to the air above. They might develop artificial trees, devices capable of splitting toxic gases and recreating breathable air. Slowly, after years, maybe decades, the Earth could begin to heal. The skies might clear, the haze might lift, and one day someone would climb to the surface, pull off their oxygen mask, and take the first clean breath in a generation. That single moment, the return of air, would be the rebirth of civilization. But that's if we're lucky. If not, Earth would become a second Venus, a planet that once teemed with life, now suffocating beneath its own atmosphere. Temperatures would fluctuate wildly. Acid clouds would block sunlight. The last remnants of humanity would fade quietly into history. And millions of years later, when the planet finally stabilizes, new life, strange, alien, adapted to poison, might evolve to replace us. Creatures that breathe sulfur, thrive in acid, and know nothing of the world that came before. The air that killed us would become their source of life. It's a haunting reminder of how fragile our world truly is. We live under a thin veil of gases, balanced perfectly by chance and time. Every breath we take is borrowed from that harmony. If that balance ever shifted, even slightly, everything we know would end. So the next time you step outside and take a deep breath, remember, air is invisible. But it is everything, because if Earth's atmosphere ever turned toxic overnight, the question wouldn't be how we die. It would be, could we ever live again?